All right, Facebook.
And YouTube.
And YouTube.
We should just start saying everybody.
You're right.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Business Heroes podcast with Victor and Mia. And obviously, I am Mia.
And obviously, I'm Victor.
And for those of you who've been watching our show for a long time, you know what the Business Heroes podcast is all about. But if this is your first time on our show, then we can just let you know that the Business Heroes podcast exists to highlight entrepreneurs and professionals, high-performing professionals that are pursuing purpose, profit, and passion so that they can affect the world for good.
While overcoming mental barriers, whether it's a mental illness or just mindset shifts that have held them captive for a long time.
So one thing you should also know is that if you have been watching us for a little while, you can see right now we are not in our regular studio. There's so much going on for our...
so much going on.
Today. Yeah, like today, literally.
This week. This month.
Depending on your time zone, it's like early in the morning and you're like, how can so much be going on already? But it's a good thing. It is. Our organization is actually growing. So we've had to travel and do some... hands-on reviewing of things that are going to be really amazing in the future. And we're going to be telling you about that, but we can't let the cat out of the bag yet, okay? Because we don't want our partners to hear it first. And you're one of them. So actually, soon you'll know. But, the beautiful thing about our organization, Victor, I love that we started Pain Unwasted because of real life experience, and today we're interviewing with each other, which I'm glad I missed you. I wasn't there and then you weren't there, but now we're together. Yay. Again.
Together again.
La, 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 la.
Is that how it goes?
I don't know. But listen, Pain Unwasted started because years ago I actually I suffered from what people would call a nervous breakdown. Okay. And, I was a principal, I was a teacher. I helped to open up a school in a rural area. It was an amazing opportunity. I thought I was having the time of my life, but I had unresolved trauma that I did not realize was unresolved. And after I became a mother, suffered with postpartum, and I crashed so bad that I found myself suicidal in a behavioral health hospital. And I couldn't believe that. Like, after being a professional and a missionary and doing all these things, how could that happen to me? And so that's kind of what our show is actually about today, because as we're beginning to expand, we realize that there are things that we've learned as business partners and as a couple that we believe will be really beneficial to you. There's so much going on for people right now, right, Victor? Like,
tons.
People are losing their jobs. We're supposedly post-COVID. People have buried loved ones and they haven't had time to process it or even think about it, right? And death is a journey. It's not an event, even though the process of burying your loved one can be an event. It is an event, but the grieving, right?
The grieving part,
it's a journey.
It's the journey,
right?
Not like you're dead and you continue journeying on. But that's a topic for a whole other day.
Absolutely, but I'm glad you clarified that. And that was actually a part of it. When I think about my quote unquote nervous breakdown, we had lost loved ones. I was a new mom, and we had lost one of our family members to suicide, and it wasn't the first suicide in our family. And I remember thinking, where are the tools? Have you ever suffered in such a major way and you're trying to figure out how you're going to process this, but you don't even know where to begin, right? The pain is so great. You don't even know where to start. And yet you still have to be on it, be on your P's and Q's. You have to be ready to serve your family, go to work, meet the demands of life, and you're struggling with a traumatic situation. And so even though I had, been highly trained in these other areas, I really was not skilled in my mental health and well-being. And I was struggling and I didn't know it. I just thought, oh, this is how I cope. I eat a few extra candy bars. Who sleeps when you're busy? I'm not sleeping because I'm busy, not because I can't sleep because I'm having intrusive thoughts. Yeah, that happens, but I'm used to it, right? Because trauma is a part of my life. And you think that certain things are normal that really aren't normal. And so I really appreciate it. So we want to share with you all, and we hope that you can share this information with loved ones because, we know we're not the only couple and family that has experienced this, but please share this with people.
Hmm.
We're going to talk to you about 5 things that we learned as a couple, right? In going through mental health challenges. Like, what do you do when someone you love is battling and they're struggling and they're suffering and you don't know what to do? What does that look like?
Mm.
And what can you do? And so,
Man.
what was it like for you, Victor? I mean,
Whew. Oh man.
yeah,
See, I'm trying not to go long, but it was.
yeah,
See, there was a point, you know. So watching you go through was just it was challenging because when you don't have tools and you don't know what to do,
right.
like all you can do is pray,
Mm-hmm.
and if you feel like your prayers aren't getting anywhere, it's just makes it that much more frustrating. Like I remember, when things were starting to spiral, I think especially after March when, we had those tragic deaths
Mm-hmm.
in your family that, we were talking and, there was a point where you're just like, well, you know, it was obvious that you were depressed, but you were like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to take my life, or anything like that. And so I was holding on to that. Whew, she's not going to take her life. Amen. Still not knowing what to really do. But watching her go down and down, and then you were talking about death and not wanting to be here anymore. And um, there was a point, I forgot what it was that you had needed some medication for. It was pills, maybe pain from the C-section or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you talking about, like, more about not wanting to be here, and you said something about pills, like you've been thinking about pills.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, like, saying, hey, if you're gonna do something like that, like you're gonna let me know, right? And I just held you and just started crying. Like I
Mm-hmm.
remember that, and it was a emotional experience, for sure.
It really was, and that leads us to point number one. And point number one is mental illness can happen to anyone. Mental illness can happen to anyone. So when you think about mental illness, really, I want to say mental well being. Consider a spectrum, right? And on this end of the spectrum is mental unwellness or mental illness, as it were. And on the other end of that spectrum, you have mental well being. And so we're all on the spectrum. And I know that can be alarming, but really at any moment in time, anyone can be very well and anyone can become very unwell. Even I like to think about, when you get sick, right? You may say, oh man, I got a little headache, or oh, I noticed I sneezed here and there. Oh, I've got a little itchy throat. But if you don't do anything about those symptoms, right, they progress. Now, sometimes they'll actually go away. Why? Because you got sleep, maybe you got extra water. You didn't even necessarily think about it, but you just got better. But then for some people, they started to take some supplements, maybe some, extra vitamin C. They decided not to go to a couple activities so they could get more rest. So there's that spectrum, and now we have, maybe at the worst point where a person, they've actually been sick a long time and they've actually not been getting help for a long time. And that impact of not taking care of yourself can kind of just show up out of nowhere. And so, unbeknownst to me, that's actually what was happening. And, as a Christian, I really believe that Satan is an opportunist. And so he loves to wait until we are at our weakest
Mhm.
moments and then come in. And so, if you think about even your life, there are situations where, it's not just that you lost your job, but you lost your job and you got sick and a family member got sick. And then you heard on the news that this was happening. And so that's how it can go. That's how this life is. And, I really wish that there were more people sharing these tips and tools that we're going to share with you even today on what you can do when it feels like tragedy in life is just compounding on you. And so point number one, mental illness can truly happen to anyone. And when you're thinking about mental illness, you're thinking about how well am I? How able am I to show up for my daily life and activities and have resilience or bounce back? Okay. And so it can happen to anyone. Point number one. You know, I would say point number two would be knowing what the signs and symptoms are that this is actually more than just a cold, if that makes sense. So we want to use that analogy of getting sick, and you can get a cold, you can get a flu, you can get cancer, right? You can die. And so how do you know as mental illness this is, what level you're at? And I like to talk about impact. So really quick, for us, impact, things were getting bad. They were progressing from that cold flu to cancer like state. Because, like I said, here I am, I'm not sleeping, right? And I'm thinking it's normal, but I'm not sleeping. So that's a sign. Is the loved one that you have in your life, what are their sleeping patterns like? You know, you can easily say, oh, it's just something I've gotten used to. They just don't sleep. But we all know that when you don't have sleep, you can become manic. Okay. And so another thing is I was gorging on food. Okay. And I mean, I don't know how many sweet tooth people there are out there. I love me a good, brownie or something, but this was to the next level. Like I would eat up to 30 candy bars a day. Okay. And I wouldn't eat any food. It was just junk, junk, junk. And now while eating maybe one or two candy bars could fit within, what I would do, 30 candy bars was way over. But I will say I was hiding it. So sometimes your family member may hide some of the things that they're doing because they don't want you to know how bad it is. And they may not really even understand how bad it is, but something in them is like, okay, I'm going to hide this point. And so I
I
didn't
don't know
just,
how well you did with hiding.
okay.
Because I would see, I'd be going to throw something away and I'd see all these wrappers in the garbage can, And so sometimes maybe they might leave clues or hints.
That's really good.
Whether intentionally or unintentionally.
That's true.
Usually there's some kind of sign and symptom, whether it's a smell or, some, I don't know. But usually there are some kind of clues that are left behind. I won't say usually, sometimes.
There are clues that are being left behind. We just have to know how to pick them out. So we've told you one is, what is their sleeping patterns like? Are they sleeping all the time now? Right, where they're not really showing up for things, or are they not sleeping at all and they're hyper vigilant, hyper into things, right? More than what you're used to for that person. Another one is going to be their appearance. And so me, I like to look nice. Like I actually think you look very cute today. I love Victor am I off focus?
You are.
Okay. Well, I just will finish my point and say I really love Victor in a vest, and I personally like to look nice.
And you do.
Thank you, but thank you, honey. But I noticed for me, I was not taking care of myself. Like I had stopped doing my hair, and that's big. Okay. Any woman, you do not do your hair. Okay. And so I stopped doing my hair, and I was just wearing bonnets. Now, some people, that's your thing. You wear bonnets. That's your thing. But think about for that person, is that like them? Is this out? And for some people, the drastic thing may not actually be negative. It may be ultra positive in a way that's weird. Does that make sense? But for me, I was wearing bonnets. I was no longer taking care of myself. And I hate to say it, but I'm going to be honest. Like my hygiene was pretty much out the window. Like I remember I just didn't feel like I had the bandwidth to even get in the tub. And that probably sounds really disgusting, but it's honestly true. Like I was really struggling to that point where, it was just like, okay, yeah, I'm going to take a bath tomorrow, and so that was pretty bad. Yeah. So that's something to think about, knowing the signs and symptoms. So we've talked about the sleeping habits, eating habits. What are they looking like?
Yes,
How are they showing up? What's the impact,
And that's just a few.
Yeah, that's just a few of them, but those are some really key ones that you can look at. Are they breaking commitments, or are they overcommitting? More than what you're used to for that person is another one to look out for. And so, knowing signs and symptoms will be number two for the person. So, Victor, number three is actually appropriate responses versus inappropriate responses, and I don't know if you want to talk about that, like how you were feeling when you would try to ask me or engage me, and how I would respond to you, or what are some things you wanted to do and you saw that I was spiraling or things weren't right for me. Like, can you share that with people?
Yes. As I finished typing, bro, I forgot how to spell. It was a spelling bee champion. Now it's the pressure. Responses. Okay. So,
I'm glad you're typing that though. Good job. Awesome.
wonderful. So try done it in advance. All right. So anyway, yeah, look out for your own appropriate and inappropriate responses. So because I did not know what to do, there were some things that I was doing that may have been helpful and things that were not. But now that I have training, thanks to my beautiful wife, I know better. So um, let me just start with the inappropriate. So, all right. So, this is now July. In fact, maybe the week or weeks before, like, the total crash and everything. I remember I thought we were taking a walk in the park or whatever. We were together, and I'm just seeing candy wrappers every day, and I'm thinking, okay, like, you know, we used to work at a wellness center. We've done research. We've grown up in a culture more or less, or I have, where like the emphasis on health is really, really big. So we know that caffeine isn't the best, and no judgment for those that use it. But speeds up the heart rate, um, and just does a number of things on the body. Throws off natural responses in the body. Um, Artificial sugar, chocolate, like weakens the immune system and
Do you
things of
see
that
what he's
nature.
focused on? He's thinking about the physiology of why I'm eating this food and like how it's just not good for me. That's
Right.
what he's
So
focused on.
my
He's a
I'm
nurse. He's
thinking,
thinking like that.
yeah. So I'm thinking, all right, whatever's going on with me, because I didn't really know, like her, maybe one or two candy bars, but 30, like she's hurting herself. It's not going to make things any better. So maybe what I need to do is take her debit card and, as kindly as possible so that she will not continue binging on these candy bars. Again, I was admittedly clueless as to the proper way to deal with somebody who is going through a mental health crisis. I was still looking out for her. I meant well, but taking her debit card was not going to be the issue. I mean, we had a conversation about this, and she pretty much said, "Well, I guess I'm gonna end up in jail then, because I'm gonna get me some candy bars, one way or the other."
So let me interject here, right? Because some of you are listening on, and you have someone in your family, and this is resonating with you. You're seeing things, and you want to like do something about it, or you already have done something about it. And 9 times out of 10, most people use force to try to get the person who's battling with their mental health to cooperate or to comply. And this is a big, big no-no for the most part. I'm not going to say 100% of the time, because obviously, if a person is you're right there and there's an extreme threat to themselves or to someone else, you may need to do whatever you need to do to get them safe. However, at this point, Victor just needed tools, right? And so if he was to have taken my debit card without me knowing it, then I was going to find a way to get what I wanted. And so the thing is, he's also not aware of how intense this is for me, and that the most appropriate thing may not be even to take my debit card, but to get me to medical care, right? And so it's really important to know algae, which I'm going to share with you now. As a mental health first aid instructor, this is something that you can learn. You can take a class with myself, and you can actually be certified to take mental health first aid classes so that you can help someone that you love. But just really quick, I'm going to just share.
But you also made your own online course.
Yes, I actually have made I've made my own online course as well, which is called MHero. And we'll put both links in there. So whether you work for a hospital or a hospital system and you would like mental health first aid to come to that system, I would say MHero is also good for that system as well. But it's also really geared towards Christians. And so we're talking about churches, families that would love to, get trained on what they can do to help their loved one in a really succinct way, but also be able to help yourself. Because as a helper, you can get burned out and you need to know what to do to keep yourself strong, right? And so, yes, Victor was thinking about the physiology, but what he needed to know was algae. And so I'm going to share that with you now. Algae, really fast, is a mnemonic, and A stands for assess for risk of suicide or harm. A, assess for risk of suicide or harm. And with this, basically, you would ask the question. So Victor would have asked me a question. He would have said, Mia, I'm noticing that you're not sleeping and that you've not been doing your hair. I mean, baby, I love you. You're beautiful, but this not like you. You're always wearing these bonnets lately. I'm laughing now. But, and I also, I'm seeing a whole lot of chocolate wrappers in the trash can, and I just want to know, like, how are you doing? What's going on? You see that? And so that's assessing for risk of suicide or harm on the first level. Now, he could also ask me, Mia, are you thinking about killing yourself? Are you thinking about dying by suicide? But now I want you to know algae is a mnemonic that does not have to go in order. So we'll pull back in the are you thinking about killing yourself a little bit later. But the first part could have been, hey, I'm noticing these signs and symptoms. How are you doing? And then L in algae is going to be listen without judgment or listen non judgmentally. So if I had then responded to him and said, no, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. Why are you digging in my trash can? He needs to stay in a spirit and mindset of no judgment. Like, girl, don't come at me like that, or I know you've been in here eating a bunch of candy bars. I saw you, and you need to get your health together. Like you're poisoning our baby, like all of that, right? What he can say is, wow, I just want to hear what's going on and then listen. So that when I tell him I'm actually eating more than 30 candy bars a day, I don't believe in God anymore, which is something I wound up saying to him later. He has to be able to listen and not just repeat or go at me in a way that's going to shut me down. It's very important. Okay.
How did I do with listening now?
You actually did a great job and you hadn't taken the class. So I applaud you for that because Victor did hear me say things like, having been a missionary, I don't believe in God anymore. And I don't think that, I want to kill myself. All kind of crazy manner of things I was saying to him. Okay. And he did listen to me, so that's really good. And I want to encourage
praying like crazy.
Yes, because you're going to feel like a duck on the water. You are maybe trying to look as calm as possible, take those deep breaths, but at the same time, your mind is just, beating, your heart beating like the duck, the feet are just going. So listen, A, assess for risk of suicide or harm, which can really just start off with asking the question, how are you doing? And then L, listen without judgment. G is going to be give reassurance and information, and that's going to be important. You want to let that person know, wow, I'm so glad you told me. That's what it can sound like. I'm just so glad that you told me. There are a lot of people that are struggling right now, and there are resources that are available when you feel the way you do. You see how I just gave reassurance and I also gave information. Thank you for telling me. There are resources out there that can help you with what you're struggling with. That's what that would sound like. Okay.
Now, one of those resources is the new suicide prevention hotline number.
Thank you.
You can text or call 988 and a suicide prevention agent will be on you. If you're texting, they're going to text you back.
Yes.
If you're calling, they're going to be on the phone to help guide you from a hot moment to kind of get you calm, cool. Like it says, the police is not going to come. Police, gotta use proper English.
It's, okay.
It's not going to come. Will not come banging at your door trying to yank you out and like force you to not do it, but it's just to kind of help. I mean, you can talk a bit more about that.
Right. And I'm glad you said that. It is important to know that if you do have to use the 988 number, that, in most cases, no one's coming to get you. Okay. Now, if someone comes, you can always request a mobile crisis unit. Okay. That's important if your area has one. And let them know so that they know how to work with you or with your loved one in the best way possible. The only reason a person would come is if that person seems like an extreme threat to themselves or to someone that is nearby. Okay, so that's important to know. So we've done A, L, and G, right? Assess the risk of suicide or harm. Do you remember the second one? Was it L, right? Listen without judgment, listen non-judgmentally. G, give reassurance and information. And now we're going into the E, and that is encourage appropriate professional help. So Victor may have listened to me and said, wow, I'm just so glad you told me. But what needed to happen next was he needed to encourage me to see a professional. So a lot of times we're in our homes and problems are happening for our loved one who's having a challenge, but we may just listen and then we go on with our day and we don't realize, hey, a vital connection needs to happen. And that is the connection of connecting them to an appropriate professional.
Mhm.
So who might an appropriate professional be? And putting you on the spot. Test time.
Well, I did actually try to get you to see a couple of counselors.
Okay.
Recommended
Good.
one didn't seem to work out all the way, but I did get
That can
online
happen.
and look for another, which actually that one I think kind of ended up saving your life through that having you sign that
Contract.
do no harm
That's
contract.
true. That's true.
But as we've learned further, usually the first place you can refer somebody to is their primary care physician. They can do lab tests and see, okay, is this just because your vitamin D levels are low, or is there something else going on in your body? And based on their discovery, they could just say, hey, you need to go on this high dose regimen of vitamin D, sorry, for X amount of days, and let's recheck your levels. And for some people, just getting their vitamin D levels up, is very helpful.
Huge difference
Yeah.
can be made by having the appropriate vitamin D3.
And even whether or not the vitamin D3 is the issue, your primary care physician can also refer you to counselors that are in their network that are reputable, that'd be good for you to see.
They can also rule out other underlying health conditions. So some people don't realize that a urinary tract infection in the elderly can actually cause them to have hallucinations.
Mm-hmm.
And so you may have someone in your life that's saying they're seeing things or hearing things, and it could literally be as simple as an infection. It could be a bad reaction to a medication. Sometimes we experience brain damage, but it's not necessarily just because we have a hit to our head. Okay. And so that's very important to know. And your primary care physician can be able to run tests and to see what's going on. But I love what you said about that, how they can refer out to other counselors. So sometimes you may be like, I want a counselor, but I don't even know where to start. I don't know where to go. I don't even have the bandwidth to try to figure out who I'm going to see, or I got to look up something. Your primary care physician often has referrals, and so they can set that up. They can help make the insurance process a little bit easier if you need to pay for it via insurance. I love what you said, Victor. You found online resources for me. You went online to see what was out there. And that's really great. So the last E, and this is on number 3. Okay, so like the last E is encourage appropriate professional help. Encourage appropriate self-help strategies. Now, this is really important. Okay, listen. I am a person who did not like to take medication, anti-medication, even if I'm in the worst pain ever. I remember after I had my daughter, Faith, a C-section, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm feeling good after this C-section. This is a real story. This is horrible, guys. Please don't judge me. But I was like, I feel good after this C-section. I don't like medication. I'm not going to take this high dose pain reliever they're going to give me.
It wasn't pretty, y'all. Wasn't pretty.
And I share that, at my own embarrassment perhaps, but to say that it can be just as serious for your mental health. If something is happening that your brain is not making the same chemicals that it used to, something's going on with your physiology, DIY is not going to cut it, okay?
Especially in pregnancy and post-pregnancy when the hormones are all over the place and trying to get settled down, but being complicated by lack of sleep,
your circumstances.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to tell you to take medication, but I'm definitely not telling you not do it. I mean, DIY can only go so far. And sometimes you may think, oh man, I don't want to be on a medication. But what does that mean? Why? Is it possible that you're saying, I don't want to get better when you say things like that? Because let me tell you, once that epidural wore off from the C-section, I was like, kill me, please. If you don't kill me, somebody, please. Just, why am I even breathing right now? Mm-hmm. And that's how depression can feel.
Mm-hmm. Mia, are you on medication today?
No, I was on it for a time. And listen, the best people can show you how to be on something for a time, and you can transition out, especially once you're getting the help that you need. Because it's one thing, because some people, they just medicate, and that's why there's a problem. Some people just medicate, but they don't get to the underlying issues causing the pain that causes you to need the medication, right? But if you can get to those underlying symptoms, be able to address them, you can transition off of that pain. Listen, my brain had I didn't know how to even fall asleep. That's how bad it got. Like I just wasn't even sleeping. Like I mean, maybe I would zonk out or something, but I wasn't sleeping. So I needed medication to even take me to sleep. Okay. And I remember my first night in the behavioral health hospital, which some people call the crazy house, and I invite you not to say that. But my first night in there, after I had a good night's rest, I remember I woke up. I was like, where am I? What am I doing in here? What? Where am I? Like, no, seriously, like, why am I in here? Like, so much had come back to my mind that I had lost, okay, just from all the sleep deprivation. And so, and it wasn't enough though. It wasn't enough to take one pill or two or three pills a night. And then, there was a long journey that I was on that I was going to need the medication for a time so I could live to see another day. And that's what we're trying to tell you. Live to see another day. Don't compromise the quality of your life because you're afraid that you'll be addicted to the medication. Because you already have that mindset, you're not going to be addicted to it. God will help you find a way to transition if that is an option for you, because we do know for some people, the scripture says we are born in sin and we're shaped in iniquity. And so for some people, they're literally born without arms and legs. And there are some people that are born, they're born blind. And there are some people, they are born and their mental health is not like everyone else's. That's just how they were born. They didn't do anything about it. It's part of living in this sinful world. And therefore, that person may need medication so that they can have the best quality of life possible in their situation. Make sense? So there are plenty of people who have schizophrenia, bipolar disease, they experience psychosis, and they are people who work for NASA and they work for these major Fortune 500 companies or own these companies, and they are able to still show up for their lives doing what they've got to do. Okay, so we are just about out of time, but I think another big point is, well, I have my point, but I know you had one. So
Well,
remember algae though.
yes.
So can you pull those up for them again so they can see it really fast?
A. Assess for risk of suicide or harm. L. Listen without judgment. G. Give reassurance and information. E. Encourage appropriate self-help. And encourage appropriate professional help.
Good. And so with the self help, though, some things you can do is like taking a walk, being able to get some good books, being a part of a support group, right? Being able to have good, healthy, nutritious meals, even being able to get one of those lights. It's not coming to my mind right now. Is it the SAD light where people experience seasonal affective disorder, right? And so being able to get a specific type of light that can even help you. Those are different self help things that you can do. Self help is not a substitute for getting professional help, though. But for some people, self help can be all they need. It just depends on a person's individual situation.
Yes. So I will say I'll insert this point.
Mm-hmm.
We'll call it point number 4. These are good tips for Mia was talking about the appropriate self help as far as directing your loved one or friend or coworker. But after we went through all that we went through, even after she was kind of on the road towards recovery, I would still be at work with question marks in my mind. Just like,
It's true.
is my wife still alive? Did she harm herself? Is she, and so, I needed, I didn't recognize it initially, but I needed self help. Or I should say professional help. I wrote the wrong thing. But I needed to see a counselor because I was still dealing with anxiety.
Yes.
And it just wasn't, I would come home like, praise God. I didn't want to be calling off the hook like, hey, you alive? Hey, you okay? Hey, but I was just like, okay.
It's true.
Lord, she's on the road. She still had some down days.
Oh, man, yes.
But I needed therapy to be able to get through that, and for some other things apart from that. But being able to take care of yourself, both by seeing a professional and by taking time for yourself to heal, to do some things that were helpful, whether it was go for a walk or get with some friends sometimes, or whatever the case.
Mm.
Was very, very needed for me. And while I didn't do all of those things, I definitely made a point to see a therapist. So, whether your loved one unfortunately takes your life or not, and you're trying to recover from that situation, getting appropriate professional help and self help are very vital.
I'm so glad you said that, because if you're watching the show and you are a caregiver, a lot of times there can be so much guilt, especially if the person does actually die by suicide. And so, one thing that is really important to know is that people's choices are theirs, not yours, right? Just like you chose to come on this show, we couldn't make you get on here. You made that choice. It's the same in any other aspect of life, including mental illness and including how people may die due to their mental illness, but via suicide, right? And so that was a huge thing for me to learn and to remember, because I had so much guilt when my family member died by suicide. I just thought that, if I had been a better family member, if only I had made that call because I felt like I needed to call, then maybe they'd still be here today. And some people will argue that to you and say, yeah, you're right. And I want you to know those people are misinformed. They're misinformed on how God has made each of us. And that's with the power of the will and the power of choice and the power to own our own choices and respond and consequences thereof. And so I personally do believe that people that die by suicide are at stage 4 in their mental illness, in the sense that when you have cancer and they say it's stage 4, there's nothing, like the body has shut down so much that it's pretty much, death is inevitable. And there's a lot of research behind that says that a person who dies by suicide is at like a stage 4 in their mental illness. And so decisions that you would make in stage 1, your brain is a little more clear, versus decisions you make in stage 4, your brain has shut down. And so those decisions are governed by a shutdown, breakdown mindset that's not reasoning and calculating as it would have if it had been healthy. And so that's another really important point, maybe a show for another day.
Yes.
But what we can tell you is this: as a caregiver, take care of yourself, take care of yourself. You're going to have guilt, but do it anyway, because you too need to live to see another day. And this thing is not short. It can be really long to have to work with somebody who's battling with their mental health. But our last point, which is my favorite point, and that is this, and it is true: recovery is possible. Recovery is possible. Now listen, I want to tell you, the longer the delay, the more difficult recovery can be. And that's something we learn in our mental health first aid courses. The longer the delay, the more difficult recovery can be. But recovery is always possible. It may look different for every person, but it is so totally achievable and wonderful. And that's how we've gotten Pain Unwasted. That's how we're here before you today, because I don't still live at the mental health hospital, right? I don't still call the hotline. There are times where I had to be calling that hotline for myself, just trying to make it through the evening, okay? And so I'm not in that place anymore. I'm actually now in a place where I train people and I help people and I teach people, right? And I strive to live by the same principles that I learned from this experience. And so, Victor, same thing. I mean, I don't want to talk for you. Earlier I nudged you. Did y'all see that? Did y'all see where I nudged Victor? Because he was doing a live confession and I nudged him. You can go back in the show and see if you saw it. But anyway, I wanted to say I'm sorry, but I love you so much. And I'm so glad that we get to go on this journey together. Yes. And I really appreciate you as my husband, just actually staying by my side. I know there are people who are like, this is just too much, and I'm not here to shame and blame whoever that was, whoever it is. But I do appreciate you, that you stood by my side and that you stayed with me, through the good times and the bad times. And man, I know God is going to bless you for that, and I've been richly blessed, and our daughters, because now we have 2. See, you can get so better, you can have another child. Is that too much? Okay, anyway. Don't go anywhere with that. Yeah, so we'll see you on another show with the business. Okay. I didn't give you a chance. Okay.
I was just like, you know,
I was trying to escape.
and
Okay.
while I'm like, oh boy, she's highlighting me. I think it's important, especially if you were married to somebody going through a mental health crisis. Like,
Mm-mm-mm.
just remember why you got together. Like there's no doubt in my mind that God brought us together. And even while things were hard, it was just like, well, God brought us together. So I don't know how this is gonna pan out, but I'm not going anywhere. Like this was the woman of my dreams. And the woman I prayed for on my knees to God, almost practically begging him, like, Lord, I want her. So,
Mm.
we made vows. And vows included come hell or high water. Like, we're
Mm-mm-mm.
together. So I was never thinking of leaving. I'm not just saying that for people to hear and see, but I mean, the commitment was there. Like, God answered my prayers, so some kind of way He was getting us through this. And that's why, while we were on our way to the Wildwood Lifestyle Center for your depression recovery program that you were going to get into, it's just like, babe, when we get through this, God's
Mm-hmm.
got a new platform for ministry for
That's
you,
right. That's right.
and we're walking in that like right now.
That's so true.
So, God brought us together, and this situation wasn't going to tear us apart. So I just really thank God for keeping me. Man, I feel like one day we just need to tell the story.
I guess
The
so. I
story.
just think
Because
it should
we're
be
just
like
kind of
a.
hitting bits and pieces, even if it's part one, part two. But just like this story, like showing the tips and stuff like we did today is great. But like the story, people have heard your side. I think they need to hear like our interwoven parts of the story. If that's something that you'd be interested in, let us know in the comments or something like that. But man,
We're
we
super
really got
out
to
of
get
time.
out of
But
here.
I have to insert this really quick because as he was saying that, I was like, I remember feeling like a loser. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
a loser. Loser! You know? Because I'm like, here I am letting down the family. Look at me, especially for those of us high performing professionals and entrepreneurs, you feel like, you're supposed to be the winner on the team. And here you are feeling like the loser or the person bringing the team down. And you kind of think like, well, if I wasn't no longer on the team can do better, and that's where that suicidal mindset can come in. And so I just want to speak to you, person that is watching this, and say that if you're feeling that way, you're not a loser. This is a lie that your brain is believing, and you're going to get through this. Okay. And if you are feeling unsafe and unwell, definitely reach out to 988. Okay. 988. They can help you. They've helped me. They've helped many people. And if by chance you have a bad experience in calling it, do not give up. Try again, because this world is made of people, and every person isn't always good at what they do. But do try again. And yes, live to see another day. Do what you got to do to live to see another day,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's just tell somebody what's going on. All right.
Well, I'm going to let Mia go, but I am going to play. She did not ask me to do this, and she wouldn't. And somebody said, "Oh, somebody left a comment. Transparency is a blessing. You guys look great. Keep carrying your victories. Just misplaced the file. Oh, we praying for you, sister. We praying for you. But thank you for the comments.
Yes.
You're gonna find that file. You need that
Yes.
file.
Yes.
Yes. All right. But yes, Mia. Again, we talked about getting trained. If I knew what I know now, I would have been so much more effective in helping my wife through. But for us to go through what we went through, now we're here. So praise God for
Yes.
that. But if you are looking for training, you can hit us up on painunwasted.org. And if you'd like the mental health first aid training, if that's something you're interested in, reach out to us there. But Mia has created her own online training, and you can check that out at mhero.painunwasted.org. And we're having a bit of a sale right now. We were having a super sale last week, but yeah, just check it out when you get a chance. If that's something you're interested in, while the price is what it is, because it could be double. It is double, but
It's
it's about half off right now. But I was just going to show a quick commercial as Mia disappears because I know we've got someplace to go.
All right. That's my husband's code for get ready.
All right, here we go. And I am signing off saying you all be blessed, and we will see you all next week, Sunday at 9 for the Business Heroes podcast. God bless. Like, share, and subscribe.
Are you walking around feeling guilty, tired, and lonely? Or are you that person who is watching your loved one struggle? You see them in constant fear, depression, isolating themselves, and you're like, man, I really don't know what to do. Like, is there anything I can do to be of service, to be of help? My name is Jamia Powell, and I am the founder of Pain Unwasted. And I remember being taken to the mental health hospital as a patient. And I remember thinking, this is the darkest time in my life, and I don't think this will ever get better. But guess what? It did. It did get better, and that's why now I'm a mental health coach and consultant. I want you to know that there is something you can do to improve your life. You do not have to continue feeling like you have no purpose or feeling like things are hopeless. There are actually tools and strategies and resources for you, and they work. And I can tell you firsthand that they work. And if you're that person who's like, honestly, I don't know what to do for my loved one, I feel like whenever I talk to them, I'm just actually making it worse. What can I do? I want you to take the mental health empowerment and responsiveness training online. We call it MHERO. You get to take it at your own pace in the privacy of your own home. You're going to get tools and strategies that actually work to improve mental well-being, but to also help someone should you face a crisis where you don't know what to do, where that person is saying they don't want to be here anymore. You're going to know what to do to help them and how to connect them to appropriate help. Sign up today and you will have access, instant access to the tools you need, to the strategies you need. I want you to see your life getting better. I want you to see you having joy and confidence again, laughing again, getting that good sleep again. It can happen. It can happen for you. It can happen for your loved one. Click the link below and go ahead and start your journey towards better health and a better life. I see you on the other side.